Hooked up properly, I hope, and it's time to bring on Michael Rebman from the Artesia Historical Museum and Art Center. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. The phone is working, but for the first time ever, I actually got to hear the market reports over the phone.
Yeah, that's this is a little newer board than the one that was in here, and without getting too technical, it has 3 buses, including one that feeds the telephone. So yes, I was able to hit a button, and you were able to hear Aaron. So seems to be working as it is designed to do. So that's good. We missed you last week, but we're glad to have you this week. We've got Independence Day holiday, 4th of July weekend coming up, and I know you want to kind of take us back in time and see how the 4th of July weekend or holiday was recognized in Artesia's past.
Indeed, and if you remember last year, I think it was last year or not the year before, I talked about the 4th of July at the time that the town was founded, in its first decade, and back then it was not really celebrated in town. Everybody left town, and that was, I think it was last year, because I also mentioned how the newspaper editor did not like the idea of people celebrating with fireworks.
Right. That's right. I remember that.
So out of curiosity, I looked to see how it was celebrated 100 years ago in 1922, and what was interesting is that things did not change between 1905 and 1922.
The editor of the paper still didn't like it?
That, and they didn't really celebrate in town.
Okay.
It was, it's interesting to read through it and see the society notes saying where people went and what people did. That was always for the more influential people in town, but in 1922, it mentions all the different people who went to Hope, to Lake McMillan, to Roswell, and especially to Carlsbad. But there's no celebration in town. There's no rodeo, no fireworks, no parade.
Everybody left town if they wanted to attend some kind of a celebration.
Yes, and it's also interesting to note that the things that did happen in town on the 4th of July, there were patriotic lectures at various organizations like the Masons and the Odd Fellows, groups like that. They had patriotic lectures, patriotic luncheons for friends and family, and there were also baseball games, but not on the 4th of July.
Now, were these just community, pickup games? People just gathered together and play baseball, or did they actually have organized teams that would compete?
Oh, there were organized teams. They were not minor league. I don't remember what the league was, if there was a league, but it was just community teams. It was always Artesia, Roswell, Carlsbad, Cottonwood, teams in Dexter.
Okay.
It was those teams all along the Pecos River.
And did they have a tournament, or they just had some games scheduled, or can you tell?
It was just weekly games.
Okay.
Every Sunday there'd be a game. Every
Sunday, okay. Wow. I wonder who was doing the video and the radio. Ha ha.
Well, the newspaper was there.
Of course, that would have been the media at the time, so very, very interesting. So from what you can tell, people didn't really, the lectures, you mentioned the lectures. What would was there any indication in there as to what, any specific topics or discussions in the lectures?
Well, the lectures were always patriotic discussions on the history of the United States and the way the government is set up and what people can do to further the further the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So it was often people who were politicians, former politicians, people who were professors from nearby colleges, and often it was just someone who's a school teacher who had information. They would give these lectures.
Mm. That's pretty neat. And I think, we don't do that today. I mean, the only lectures going on are the UFO lectures in Roswell. Are there any modern day lectures that you're aware of that are taking place in this time frame?
Modern day, like today?
Like today, I'm not aware of anybody doing any Independence Day lectures or anything like that. I haven't read that or heard that.
Well, and there's some museums that do that, but
right.
I haven't seen museums hosting guest speakers in quite a while.
So very interesting.
Go
ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say the following year, in 1922, the newspaper didn't even want to talk about events in town because it was still the same newspaper, still the same mindset by the people running it.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1923, they at least mentioned how things happened in town. So they mentioned, of course, the people who left town, people who traveled to different towns, lakes, but they also at least mentioned that in town, all the businesses were closed and kids are running around with firecrackers.
And remind me again, what was the primary objection from the editor that you could gather? Was it the fireworks?
The editor thought that the 4th of July was supposed to be a solemn celebration of the nation's birthday with a focus on patriotic learning and a strong emphasis on considering the country and its future and what people need to do to develop and further their patriotic duties.
Okay.
They did not like the idea that people would just have a fun, raucous celebration with beer and fireworks and a lot of outdoor cooking.
Right. So they probably would have been okay with the lectures, but not the other activities that were associated with it. And oh my gosh, kids running around with fireworks. That's just terrible. Terrible, Michael. Why are we allowing that?
Although, interestingly enough, a lot of people did go to Carlsbad in 1923 because they had an actual celebration.
Yeah. So.
But there was also feuding between Carlsbad and Artesia. There always is, but in 1923, the focus was on roads.
Okay.
Because in 1923, that's when Artesia finally started paving roads. They paved Main Street, concrete pavements from 1st to 7th. And the objection that year was that Carlsbad was doing the same. They were laying out a lot of gravel instead of pavements. And they were paying it out of county and municipal funds, but Artesia received a very generous grant from the state.
Oh, so the Carlsbad folks were a little jealous of Artesia.
Quite. But it was not just that. It was, the back and forth was over whether or not the state should be funding it, but also whether or not gravel is better than concrete.
Right. Now, at this time, 1923, had the automobile taken over as the dominant mode of transportation, or?
Oh, definitely.
So, not a whole lot of horses and buggies still around in 23.
There were some, but it's interesting that the ads in the newspaper were overwhelmingly for automobile services, for tires, for service stations, for car dealerships, for garages, for storing automobiles. And what's interesting is that the filler that the newspaper would use changed from the first decade of Artesia. The filler was often National Geographic type articles on places and people outside of New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1922 and 1923, it was full page of just articles gleaned from other publications about automobiles, about maintenance, articles from other newspapers about efforts at paving roads elsewhere.
Wow.
So the newspaper editors, they really wanted Artesia to have paved roads and automobiles.
And that was a big emphasis.
And there was even a column each week. It was a weekly paper in 1923. There was a column from the Ford dealership stating who bought Fords that week.
Wow. Michael, the more things change, the more things are still the same. Dealerships still do that now. They'll post pictures of happy new customers. Artesia and Carlsbad from time to time get crossways on different things. And that's very, very interesting. So Artesia's getting these nice cement paved roads with state funds, and Carlsbad and Eddy County are getting some paved roads, but they're having to do it basically out of their own county and city funds. And I could see, it sounds to me like Artesia's legislative representatives were doing a better job than the ones in Carlsbad.
They were, but they were only able to pave main streets. Carlsbad did at least try to pave a lot more than that.
That's true. That's true. So was what is now 285, what was the highway that ran between Artesia and Carlsbad?
No, that was just the Carlsbad Highway.
Okay.
I'm not sure when the federal numbers came into play.
Yeah.
I do not believe it was until after 1923.
And was it paved? Would it have been a paved road?
Oh no, it would have been dirt and gravel.
Dirt and gravel, just kind of an expansion of what may have been a wagon path or something like that.
And because of that, the railroads were still quite popular at this point, so people still took trains to go from town to town.
Okay. So the folks that went from Artesia to Carlsbad for the Independence Day weekend most likely would have taken the train?
They could have taken the train, but there were also companies that offered driving service as well.
Okay.
So they would have automobiles, and they would give people rides. See if I can remember.
There's probably some guy named Fred Uber.
Oh, no, it was actual professional driving services.
I know that. No, I'm thinking of the modern day equivalency. We have, the ride-sharing services. But back then, anyway, I'm sorry, Michael. I was trying to be funny.
Here it is. This is why I'm calling in, because I'm actually able to pull up my notes.
That's right.
The White Line Stage Company.
Okay.
Out of Roswell. They had 7 passenger Buick vehicles, and they had careful and courteous drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And for 5 cents per mile, hand baggage carried free, they would transport people from Roswell to Carlsbad.
Okay.
And then the reverse trip.
And I'm assuming they would stop in Artesia and pick people up and drop people off in Artesia?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Roswell, Dexter, Greenfield, Hagerman, Lake Arthur, Artesia, Dayton, Lakewood, and finally Carlsbad.
So if your trip to Carlsbad was around 45 miles for $2.25, at 5 cents a mile, you could drive. How long did that drive take with the dirt roads and the condition of everything?
2 hours.
Two hours.
Well, it would arrive at Artesia at 9:35 a.m. and then it would arrive at Carlsbad at 11:15 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, they probably had to. Well, in other words, I was going to make another stupid joke. I'm sorry. So it was a 7-passenger Buick, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm sure Buick was quite proud of that contract when they got that, and may have even featured in their advertising. So that is really interesting. Did that run 7 days a week, even holidays? Or
That I do not know.
yeah, may not have been indicated in their advertisement. Wow, this is all just interesting because we really don't. I mean, we have first world problems today, and we complain about things or the conditions of roads or potholes or, other stuff. But we really, for the most part, have no concept of what our predecessors dealt with when it came to things, simple things that we think of them as simple things today. But what you had to go through then just to get from Roswell to Artesia, or from Artesia to Carlsbad, or if Artesia wasn't going to have any Independence Day celebrations and you're going to go to an Independence Day celebration, what you had to do in order to be able to participate in that. That's just really interesting. So, well, we've got a little over a minute left. Anything else you want to remind folks of the exhibit that you have on display and what your hours are this Independence Day weekend?
Yes, our hours are not changing at all for Independence Day because we are always open on Saturdays, and the 4th of July is Monday, and we're closed Mondays anyway, so there's no impact. Our hours are 10 to 1, 2 to 4, Tuesday through Saturday. And right now on display in the Arts Center is the Fashionable Founding Fathers, an exhibit on menswear of 1905 when the town was founded.
Excellent. So if you get a chance and you're looking for some things to do, or you've got visitors in town and you want to spend a little bit of time looking at the history of Artesia, tomorrow, Saturday, be sure and stop by the museum and check those things out. Michael, as always, it's always fun to have you on and look back at Artesia's history, and I look forward to having another conversation next week.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Michael Rebman from the Artesia Historical Museum and Art Center. That is going to conclude our broadcast for today. Don't forget, tonight we will be in Roswell at the UFO Museum with Clyde Lewis, and the Ground Zero show that you hear every night at 8 o'clock will be live.